Isn't it great when technology actually works? In this episode of the I Can't See You podcast, I'll talk about how the Verizon Fios voice remote has helped me out and made life a lot simpler. I'll also give you a Ziggy update.
From Studio C, welcome to the I Can't See You podcast with David. He can't see, but he's got a lot to say and a face for radio.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 109 of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for today's episode, and I have a few things to talk about. Again, I'm going to try to keep it to 30 minutes or less, like Domino's used to be able to deliver pizzas in, and I'm guessing nothing gets delivered in 30 minutes or less now with the way things are today, and just about everything is delivered or curbside pickup, it seems. First thing is I wanted to talk a little more about Ziggy, and how could you not want to talk more about that? Since we brought him home about 10 days ago, we've already noticed that he does seem to be getting bigger, which is kind of funny. And it's just funny to see how his personality is coming out. But there have been issues. He's gaining more confidence. And of course, that's making things a little more, I don't want to say dangerous, but, you know, we really have to stay more on top of him. When first few days we had him home, he wouldn't go near the stairs because he was afraid to go up. Now he bolts for the stairs and tries to go up them. And the stairs in our house are pretty steep. And it's not too much of an issue when he goes up, but we're afraid when he comes down because he hasn't mastered that yet. The other problem with our stairs are that the railing, it's not like a spindle. It's like a wrought iron design. And there's ways for him to get through, and he has his eyes, Ziggy does, on a blanket a throw that is on the back of the couch that Jane lays on when we watch TV or sits on when we watch TV. And he'll come over and he'll go to the front of the couch and try and get up on there. And again, as I said last week, Liz does not want him on the furniture. And I kind of get why she doesn't, but of course Jane and I are for it. I don't know where Jacob stands on that, but he wants to get the blanket that's up there. And it's on the back of this couch. I guess it would be more of a love seat than a couch. And the back of that couch is against the wall where the stairs are. So he has been looking for openings to go through and walk over there and get it. So we have to be careful about that because there's a couple of places it could really be dangerous the way the design is and everything else. So that's just been more. Whereas the last few days to almost all of last week, when I was in the kitchen, let's say cooking lunch, or just reheating breakfast, which is oatmeal that Liz makes in the morning because it's it takes an hour. I basically come down when I'm ready to come down to eat breakfast, and I just have to heat it up. She starts it at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning before she goes to school. And, he would I knew he'd be laying close by, but he's sleeping less. So you just have to keep an eye on him more. He's really found a taste for Jane's plant, which, as I've mentioned on multiple occasions, is older than Jane because it was given to us when Jane was born by Chris Doherty and Doherty and Company Insurance. And, Chris, my friend, passed away last April, and I kind of fear that, we may have to get rid of the plant. And I hate to do that, but sooner or later, I guess it was going to happen. The fact that I kept it alive for so long, and, we've had it transplanted about 5 years ago. But he likes leaves. Ziggy loves leaves. And, when we're outside, he goes after them and whatnot. But so it's just been tough for me because there are times that I will look around and I can't see him. It's happened in the backyard. And I get a little nervous, and I guess I shouldn't be too worried now because he's gotten a little bit bigger, and I was always fearful the front gate where the backyard leads to our driveway. I think he would have been able to get through last week. Now I don't know. Not that he's grown that much, but I think he's grown enough where I know his head fit through last week. I wasn't sure if he'd be able to get his shoulders through, and I didn't want him to try because I didn't want him to know that he could and then, make a beeline over there. So it's been a little scary here and there because I wonder if he's found a way out. In some spots, our fence doesn't go completely to the ground, so I'm afraid that he could crawl under, Army man style. And, so a couple of times I've looked for him, and I actually at one point had called Jane, who was, at work, and she was sitting in her office, which overlooks our backyard. And I asked if she saw him, and then as the line was connecting, he came from behind some trees. So, so that's been a little hairy. So there's just been more hands-on this week, and he hasn't really come downstairs. Liz brought him downstairs into Studio B today for the first time. The stairs are much steeper than going upstairs, to the second level. They're much steeper coming down, and there's only a railing coming down, and the stairs are wide open, so he could jump off, which he likes to do when he's on any stairs. He doesn't wait till he gets to the bottom. He jumps, which of course could be bad, both for his hips and any other bones that he may, face plant with or whatever. So we haven't brought him down here. Liz carried him down tonight to grab something while I was doing some work. And, I think he was curious about down here. So sooner or later, we'll get him down here. So I haven't been able to do much work on the computer. The only time I'm able to do computer stuff is when Liz and or Jane are home and not working. Jane is home all day, but, she usually works, as I've said before, well past 7 on most days. Some days she gets done a little earlier. Some days 7 o'clock she's done. I think she's only supposed to work now until 5:30, so she gives a little extra, it seems. So that's created a challenge for me going through emails because I have multiple email accounts, as a lot of people do, but I think in my one inbox on my Mac, I have 15 email accounts. They're for different websites we've created that not necessarily are important emails, but I don't like them to sit in there and wonder, hey, what do we need to go through them? So I usually like to go through them every couple of days because my overall count of emails goes up. So when I have a chance, I go through my main emails I have on my phone and I go through. It's only things that I want to look at, quote unquote, that I don't open, or if I open, I then mark as unread so I can come down on the computer and look. And I'll get into that in a couple of minutes because there's a couple other things that I want to talk about that I actually have to see and that I don't know what to do, but I'll get to that in a minute. So at nighttime, Ziggy stays in a crate. It's I don't know why we call it a crate. It's a cage, as you do with most puppies until they're potty trained. And he's had a few accidents. It's been pretty good though. He's had a couple. Yesterday, for example, he had one. He was sleeping, and Liz got home from work, and he got up and was excited, and then of course hadn't been out for a while because he was, he'd been sleeping for like an hour. So I hadn't taken him out. So today I wanted to make sure when Liz got home, I was either in the process of taking him out or already outside so that when she got home, and so it worked out better, no accident today. So, because I've had the limited time, I've been limited to what I've been doing. I've had a project that I have to do for NFB Newsline, which I will talk about a little bit in more detail a little bit later when I talk about the seeing stuff. And I haven't been able to do it all in one sitting. And that's usually the way I like to do things because it's so hard for me to get to a spot and remember what I've already done and then have to find that spot. It's not like when you could see, if you think when you're reading something and you get to a paragraph, it's not that way. With me, I have to listen to in the instance on my computer, I have to listen to the entire thing to find out where I was. And, so it's just, I like to focus on one thing, get it done, and then move on. And if I have to get up or I get distracted by a phone call or a text or whatever, it kind of throws me off. So again, recording the podcast late on Wednesday evening, the 20th, Inauguration Day, instead of when I usually record it in the afternoon on the Wednesday or the morning of the Thursday. Now, I knew I wouldn't be able to record it on Thursday. That's why I'm doing it now, because Jane is working and Liz will be at work. So, there's no way I'd be able to come down to Studio B and record it. And if I did, the dog would be with me and getting into a whole bunch of trouble because we haven't, puppy-proofed the Studio B /office yet. So So, so it's just been a lot of fun with Ziggy, and just the things that he's starting to do. I think he's starting to understand what the word no is, if ever so slightly. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how training continues to go, and it's just been a lot of fun, and some of the crazy stuff he does. And I'm going to post on Instagram tomorrow. I have some pictures of his favorite chew toys, which I'm gonna put up, and his favorite, if it's not something that's a piece of furniture or something like that, is my hand. And you'll see my hand is all cut up because I like it. I know he likes to chew on it. And I actually did a test today when we were playing in the living room. I put one squeaky toy to one side and another one in front of him, and then my hand in front of him, and then something else, off to the other side. And he went for my hand right away. He first started to go for one of the squeaky things, and before he even put his mouth on it, he went for my hand. And he just liked that. Hopefully he's not getting a taste for blood. So look for that on my Instagram account tomorrow. That's the 21st, the day the episode drops. But it's been a lot of fun, and sometimes frustrating when I have to go outside with him, and he loves wood chips, and he loves. We have this one little area that has a couple of trees and a rose bush and a bunch of wood chips, which he loves to get, that we then fish out of his mouth. And but the funny part is, when he gets one and he's in a good spirit, he hasn't just woken up, and you go after him, he will run all around the yard, which I just love watching him dart back and forth across the yard. And I have shot some videos, and I'll have that up either on my Instagram account or Ziggy and the Man on Instagram. I haven't done anything with TikTok yet, but I have started posting on Ziggy and the Man on Instagram. So you can check that one out as well, just in case people on my Instagram feed get tired of seeing the dog. There'll be more on Ziggy and the Man, because that'll be pretty much exclusively for him, and maybe a couple of me. I mean, the profile picture is me and him, since I'm the man, not the man. I'm the man. Another thing I wanted to talk about today is, and I've touched on this in previous episodes. In fact, way back, I did a whole episode on Verizon and some of the accessibility features that they have and that they don't have, and how some of the stuff is buried under multiple menus. And I've had, as my vision has been, and I do have a little bit, but as my vision has, and during the winter, there are days when it's terrible or much worse than usual because, whether it's the heat being on a lot or whatever, I just can't see the channel guide or the what's on, and it's so frustrating because I could just about make it out, but I can't. And sometimes I misread it and think it's one thing. And obviously, if the show is not in a commercial, I could kind of figure out what it is. But I remembered with one of those other problems that I mentioned on a previous episode that there was something called text to speech. So I had Jane look through the menu, and she found it. And I said, oh, yeah, okay, great. Tell me where it is. And she's like, okay, go to this menu, go up to this menu, go to the right twice, then up once, and then over to the right once. I said, Jane, I am never going to remember that. And I said, oh, wait a second. Give me the remote. I take the remote, and I said, turn on text to speech. Boom, it did it. Turn off text to speech, because I know for a sighted person, it's annoying to listen to, because every time you change the channel or pull up a guide, it starts to talk. So if you're watching something, it's annoying. When you can't see it, it's not annoying. It's helpful. But it can get annoying if you flip back and forth or or around the channels like I do some days when I'm watching, and I go from, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, Bloomberg, and stuff like that. And I go back and forth, especially during the day. If I turn on the TV, it's, Bloomberg and CNBC, and sometimes Fox Business News, but usually CNBC or Bloomberg. And, if I had text to speech on, every time I changed the channel, that would come up. So that would get annoying in a hurry. And so I don't, I don't do it that way. So there is your tip for this week. If you have the voice remote from whoever you're cable provider is, give it a try. If there's something that you need to dig down into the menus to turn off or on or whatnot, it's great being able to use the, turn on text to speech and boom, it's on. And it's just great. I don't have to remember that crazy, up how many, down how many, over this way, that way, the other way. And it's awesome. So it just made it so much more easy. If you remember in that episode, probably over a year ago, where I talked about how difficult it was to turn on the described audio. You had to dig down and there was no other way. And, you had to click 2 buttons, whereas, as I mentioned then, the closed caption button is right there on the remote. Off or on, boom, right there on the front. You just hit it once, turn it on, turn it off. So the fact that you can now just say what you want in the remote, I get a little carried away sometimes when I do that. And Liz and Jane make fun of me because I ask it to do things that, of course, not even a TV could do. So, but if you have it, give it a try because it's just great. Now I have to tell you a funny story that just happened as I am sitting here talking to you. My voice started to give out, and I needed to take a drink of water. So I hit pause as I was recording this. And when I hit record again after I took a drink of water and got my throat back in shape, I had moved the boom arm of the mic up to the top of my head. So I had recorded for about 3 minutes with very little audio because the boom arm was at the top of my head, not where my mouth was. So in that, I can mention that it is not long before I have some new equipment, and that won't happen because I'm going to have an actual microphone, not the headset with the boom arm. I will have a microphone that I will speak into, and I'm looking forward to that. But I haven't decided exactly which mixer I'm going to get or which mic, but that is coming along just as the audio is. And this is another thing that I wanted to talk about. So many things I don't do, and I know I'm not the only one. You want to make things, you want to do something, you want to do it right. I know with me, I only want to do something once. I don't want to do it and then have to do it again. And I've put off, I know I've talked about this before, I've put off getting the voiceover to change, the intro and the outro to the podcast. But I've put off because I haven't found the music that I want to brand the podcast. So when I woke up today after my 2 hours of sleep in bed that I was able to get, which I was also able to get 2 hours on the couch downstairs near where the dog was. I realized when I woke up today, I should just get it done. And maybe I would get it done 2 ways. I would get the person to do it and have her put an audio track behind, and then have her record it also without any kind of audio. So when I do finally find the music, I would just use it, or just have her do it with the audio. And then once I find the right music that I really want, I could just do that. So I promise that is coming as soon as I have a minute to sit here and order it from her. I think her name was Victoria, I believe, if I remember correctly. And she's based in London. So I am going to use her again. I know a lot of people liked her. A few people have asked about her. How did I find her? And it's just through Fiverr. If you've never used Fiverr, you could find stuff on Fiverr for just about any problem that you have. And I don't have an affiliate agreement with Fiverr, but even if you want to lay out a spreadsheet and need a formula or whatever, you can go there and get that done. I've used them for programming, web design, graphics. If I need a basic graphic that I didn't feel comfortable doing or did it and then didn't like it. It is hit or miss sometimes, especially with some of the programming. I paid somebody once to do something that I never actually used because it never worked right. And then I later found out why, and it wasn't the person on Fiverr's fault. It's just the way it was, was set up. It was an issue with PayPal. So I do promise that that's coming. it's not going to be perfect the first time, and I'm okay with that. And, it was like when I started the podcast, I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, and I knew that I would get better as I've come along. And, 109 episodes, hopefully, hopefully I have gotten a little bit better. I have wanted to have some guests on. I've asked a few people. Now, the issue has been, I've got to find the right time because I can't do it during the day now until the dog is better trained and, I can take a couple of minutes away and do an interview. So who knows when that'll be. So Phyllis, hang in there. I promise I will have you on. There's put a couple other feelers out. We'll see what happens. I'm hopeful because I know when I have somebody on the podcast, I know it's better received than when it's a solo episode like today. And speaking of having somebody on, not that I was going to have this person on, but a couple of weeks ago, I had friended someone or followed someone on Instagram. Her name is Erica, and she is a counselor, I guess a guidance counselor at a school that helps blind and visually impaired kids. And I think just kids. I'm not sure if it's kids and adults or if it's just like a school that, like you have a guidance counselor at a school. And she had a student named Jose Adrian, who is blind but wants to get into communications, broadcasting, podcasting, whatever, and he's into sports. And so a couple days after we connected on Instagram, I got a message from her saying, would I be interested in talking to him about how I got started and so forth and so on. And I of course, I said yes, because, it's one thing that folks who can't see, and I found that it doesn't matter if you've been blind your whole life or it's something that just happens. Sorry, my voice is given way again. If it's something that just happened. So, anytime somebody asks for help from me for that, especially if it's something that I kind of know about and have lived through and have done, it makes it very easy for me to talk to somebody about it. And Jose Adrian wants to be, some sort. He loves sports, and I think, man, that is cool. And I said during the call with him and Erica, I said, it's very easy to get started. And Lisa, if you're listening, this goes for you too. You can just start. It's never going to be great at the beginning. To go back to that same thought as just a minute ago, it's not going to be perfect. And I'm mad that I've just waited this long to get the intro and outro done. And Jose Adrian, if you were listening, please just do it. I mean, you can do it with your phone. It's not going to sound the greatest, but do it and you'll gain more confidence. And that's what I was getting at. Once you start doing something, and if it's something that you know about, that was one of the questions. How do you become comfortable speaking in front of people or doing something like this? And it's just, to me, it's just the knowing the subject matter and being able to communicate that to everybody that's there. I think back to, I presented at the 2019 NFB state convention in Harrisburg. I'm the NFB Newsline person in Pennsylvania, and I was giving some updates and some, talking about Newsline, trying to get folks who aren't on Newsline onto Newsline. And again, I'll talk more about Newsline in a couple minutes. So I wrote this whole thing out, and I'm like, oh my God. And it's still one thing that I just can't really get down, where I can do something off the top of my head without having to look at something because I can't see anything when I look at it. So I wrote this whole presentation out. And again, I was in Harrisburg, so I don't have a laptop because I can't see a laptop. So I wrote the whole thing out in giant text and with a pair of super duper reading glasses in the hotel room the night before. I just went over it and over it and over it. Basically, I guess like an actor learning their lines. And I just did it. And after a couple hours the night before, I felt comfortable that I knew it. And, but it was only a 10-minute or so presentation. It wasn't long. And, when I say presentation, it's really a 10-minute speech because, with blind folks, you're not putting graphics up. If you are, nobody's really seeing them. And, it just doesn't make sense to do it. So that was the message that I gave to Jose Adrian is to, if you know the subject, that's all the confidence you need. You know it, just say it. You would say it to your friend. If you and your friend are talking about, and I don't remember where they live. I want to say they live in Sacramento. I think they were in Northern California. If you're talking about the 49ers, for example, and you know it, you don't have to, you're not nervous when you're talking to your friend about it. When you're telling your friend, hey, this guy is great or this guy sucks, you know it. There's nothing to be worried about. I said, you just got to do it. It's not expensive to start with a podcast. You can just do it. It's so easy. And so if anybody's out there, if you are some sort of counselor to folks who are blind or visually impaired, please reach out to me if you have somebody that's interested in starting a podcast or a kid that wants to go into communications. Man, I'd be happy to talk about that to them and help them out in any way that I could. I just think it, you just got to do it. You just got to move forward and do it. Now, I mentioned Newsline a couple of times. I'm sorry. I mentioned NFB Newsline a couple of times as I was told when I did training a couple of years ago down in Baltimore at NFB HQ. It's NFB Newsline. And when you write it, it's all caps, it's hyphenated. And the first time you write it in, whatever you're writing, you put the registration mark on it. So if you get an email from me and it says NFB Newsline and it's got the registration mark, don't think that I went overboard. That's the way they wanted it done. So that's the way I'm doing it. And that's, sometimes off the cuff people, when I'm speaking with them, will just say Newsline. But I was told to always call it NFB Newsline and get in the habit of saying that. So I've had this thing to do for NFB Newsline. And because I haven't been able to spend a lot of time on the computer, I've been using my phone more to surf the web. Do you still say that? Or am I dating myself? I think you know what I mean, though. So because I have been doing this, I've had to do more things on my phone that I'm not as comfortable doing as I would be doing it on my computer. And again, on my computer, I use the zoom function a lot where I zoom all the way in. So between the Newsline thing, the NFB Newsline thing that I was working on the last couple of days and a cabinet that I wanted to look for, in the office / Studio B, I still have a lot of things that I don't have a home for because right now the only thing in the office is my desk, a couch, a table that I'm probably taking out of here, and a couple of odds and ends of stuff on the floor. So I need some storage. So we've been waiting and it's time that I get some sort of cabinet and I want to look at a cabinet. The type of cabinet I want, a storage cabinet. I want, cabinetry stuff down at the bottom with doors that, put stuff away and you don't see it. So if it's a little messy or full of boxes, it doesn't matter. And then maybe a shelf or two, and then maybe some more cabinets. And, on the shelf or two, I could display a few things. I've got some autographed baseballs and some stuff like that and whatever I put on there. So I want stuff like that so that I can put, right now I have all my medicine that I take are sitting on a TV cabinet in our living room, which I think looks horrible. And, it should be in a cabinet, here in the office because usually I'm in the office and that's, where I usually, for the last however many years have taken my meds, whether it's drops or some sort of pill or even a Tylenol. So last night I thought, I'm going to look tonight while I'm sitting here on the couch with my earbuds in and the dog sleeping feet from me. But I just wasn't comfortable doing it. And it goes back to the part where I was told, as I've mentioned before, that I'm a visual person. And again, tonight, while I was editing this document that's going to be on NFB Newsline when you call in, I also realized if I had to do this by just listening, it would be a lot more difficult. Or maybe it wouldn't, especially with editing the document. The thing that I was looking at the storage cabinet that I was looking at Home Depot, if the description is good, I could probably get through and say, okay, let me mark this and have Liz have a look. Because again, it might say a color. If somebody says it's antique white, I kind of get what that color is. But if it's a wood grain, I prefer something on the lighter side. And, if it's too dark, I don't want it. So I realized as I'm going through these things on my phone, and again, I'm trying to zoom in, but that brings up another issue with, when you have voiceover on the phone, you can't just take your fingers and pinch them together to zoom in. It doesn't work like that. And I haven't figured out how to do it. In fact, I shut voiceover off. I pinch my fingers in and get in and, just start moving my finger around to see if I can get a better look. Sometimes I can, sometimes I still have no idea what I'm looking at. And that's usually, it's usually how things go for me. The NFB Newsline document, on the other hand, was sent to me, and there are tables in it, and there's just what looks to be regular text. However, when there's tables or even sometimes regular text, there's formatting. So if I were to just copy and paste that in somewhere onto NFB Newsline, for example, it's not going to read right. And that's exactly what's happened. I've spent hours doing this so far, and I'm not nearly done. I don't know how many pages this document is, but I want to say it's at least 5. It might be more. So what I have to do is now go back and edit what's wrong. Now, sometimes it looks perfect on the screen and sounds perfect when I have my computer read it to me. But when I then go into NFB Newsline and listen to it, it's not right. And it is so frustrating because I don't know if I'm missing something or my computer's not reading it to me because it knows it's a character that doesn't need to be read. But on Newsline, NFB Newsline, when I'm listening, it reads it. And just for a refresher, NFB Newsline is a service, a news and information service for blind and visually impaired folks and folks who are otherwise print disabled that reads newspapers, magazines, ad circulars, has breaking news stories. Well, what I'm editing is for the local, what's called the local channel, part of the NFB of Pennsylvania, and from an organization within Pennsylvania called Associated Services for the Blind. And it's basically just some of the programs that they have, from now through June. Because of COVID, they're not doing things in person. They're doing all these different things on Zoom, where, there's story time for kids. There's a gardening one and stuff like that. And basically it's, it's like you would read in a newsletter or something like that, but instead it's already, it's audio. It's just, you dial in on your phone or you use your computer to get to it, or you use your iPhone to get to it. But again, when I was listening to it, it just wasn't right. And, so I've been editing this thing for, like I said, the last couple of days, and I've spent multiple hours, and I just don't have multiple hours to do it, because, I'm only on the computer maybe 3 hours a day now. And that's just not enough, between all the emails that I can get bombarded with. And speaking of those, I mentioned earlier that I get these emails that I save because I want to go back in and look on if it's something, click here to do this. I got something from Verizon saying you're qualified for, some discount or a gift card or bonus or whatever. So when I went there, I couldn't do it on my phone. So I figured, well, I'll wait until I go on my computer and then I'll do it. And it was something about a gift card for when we moved. We qualified, but I had to do it on the computer. So, it's just been, I just constantly think of myself like Sam Wheat in Ghost. I'm stuck in the middle. I can see a little bit, but not enough to really be helpful. But I'm not 100% doing the stuff that a blind person who's been blind their entire life. And that's what's frustrating. I know it's like beating a dead horse. I've been visually impaired my whole life. I knew that my vision was going to deteriorate as I got older. And that's what I was told, even as a young kid. Hey, you know what? We're just trying to maintain your vision for as long as possible. I said, oh, you're not trying to make it better? He said, oh, no, we can't make it better. And maybe one day they can. And that's what's frustrating. I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. And, I should have been able to do some of this stuff. I should have taken Braille. Because if I had already known Braille, it may have been easier. Again, as I've mentioned before, my sense of touch is horrible. Sometimes when I'm holding my phone, it slides through my hand because I can't tell that I'm not holding it hard enough to keep it in my hand. From the psoriatic arthritis, and it's just frustrating that I'm not there yet. So being a visual person, it's me and Sam Wheat. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if somebody's going to have to get chopped in half by a by a falling window or what's going to happen. But it's just I'm stuck in the middle, as that song goes, and I guess I'm stuck in the middle with you, and I appreciate being stuck here with me. And lastly, before I get out of here, and I know I've probably gone over 30 minutes at this point, just one final update on the condo. Settlement went through. Bing, bang, boom. We're done with the condo, and that is just very exciting because there were just all sorts of... I just kept waiting for something else to come up. Again, the contractor had, missed a couple of things, and it ended up costing us about $3,000, one of the things he missed. And, but it's done. We're done with it. We got paid. Again, can't recommend our real estate agent, Branka Deutsch, enough. She's always pulled through for us, and we've used her 4 times to buy and sell real estate in the main line in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. So if you're in Pennsylvania and you need a real estate agent, she would be a great one to use. She goes all out, and just an outstanding realtor. So I will leave the link. I know I left the link last week on the show notes page. You can find the show notes for this episode at ican'tseeyou.com/109. I can't see you sounds like a whole sentence. It's only 7 letters long though. ican'tseeyou.com/109. I really appreciate you listening. Please tell your friends about the podcast if you have somebody that is curious about somebody you can't see. I'd appreciate that if you passed that along and shared it with someone. And I hope you continue to stay safe. Again, we're in the home stretch. I know it. Home stretch, right? Continue to wash your hands. Wear your mask if you want. I'm not going to tell you to wear it or not wear it. I'd prefer if you're near me, you wear it. Please just stay safe. And just don't be one of those numbers, whether it's a positive case. And for God's sakes, don't be one of those deaths. Please. Be smart about it, and hopefully we'll get back to normal very quickly, and things will all be better. Thanks again for listening to episode 109. Catch up with me on the socials at David Benj, and I promise there won't be too many more pictures of Ziggy on my Instagram feed, but I don't know. If he does something funny, it's going to be there. Again, stay safe. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast. Follow David on Twitter. He is at David Benj.